Good morning, everyone. So I'll just reintroduce myself a little. So I'm P K Sidharth Ramkumar. I come from Cochin in Kerala. I did my graduation in architecture. I graduated in 2019 August, and then I started preparation. So 2020 attempt I got into Indian Post and Telecom Accounts and Finance Service. It's a Group A service. Then 21 attempt I got into Indian Police Service, West Bengal cadre. 2022 again no change. 23 so rank 4. So I've prepared some pointers on which we'll just broadly talk about, and then finally we'll take some questions if you have any. Okay. So my journey, like in terms of preparation, it was COVID time, so I mostly did my preparation online. Like did take help from some institutes, from seniors. And mostly I think even all of you guys are very lucky, just like our generation in general is quite lucky, because there's a lot of content that we get in social media. Like there is credibility to someone who is cleared, and when they talk to you, like not that I'm talking, I'm saying when I was also preparing, like I also used to watch some topper videos, some will be helpful, some not so helpful, but still it did give an idea about what they're in general looked into, and whether you do something like that, whether it will work or not. I mean, the result might change, but still you need some like reinforcement constantly. You want to waste your time, usefully. So in some ways it helped. And another way, I think even Telegram, the advent of Telegram and the content, the toppers, like many of my colleagues this year, last year, like the kind of content that they put out also, like I think in many ways they are very, very helpful, be it the topper papers, be it their notes. Like I personally, so I did take content even from my colleagues in the Indian Police Service. Like I remember one of my colleagues, his name is Melvin. So his anthro paper, his answer copy, it was extremely useful for me. I mean, not that the content is that different, but you want to try out something, you want to see whether this thing worked or whether another thing worked. So in that way, I think YouTube, Telegram, social media also helps. It depends on how you use it. Okay. So just to make it interesting, so I have like divided. Okay, what are the three stages of this thing? We have the prelims, we have the mains, and the interview. So we'll be focusing more on mains because 85% of the marks effectively comes from mains, and that is where the real competition lies. And if I take it if I take an example of cricket, let's say three stages are there. So prelims is more like the power play. If you guys follow cricket a little, so power play it makes a lot of difference. You want to enter the middle overs, power play is extremely important. Depending on the start is what you want to write mains, you have to clear the prelims. So prelims is extremely important, no doubt. That is where most people will get out. But mains is where actually the game changes. That is where whatever you prepare is for the mains mostly. That is where your rank depends. And if you are strong enough, if you get an 850 around 8, so this time my mains mark was around 874 if I'm not wrong. Anyway, somewhere like that. So point being, anywhere above 840 if you get, then you're placed in a very good position, because interview can go this way, that way. So personally, I gave 4 interviews. I got 185, 187 in 3 out of 4. But one interview, second interview, I got 160. Same board. The chairman also remembered that I had architecture and anthro. He smiled, he greeted me well, and then still it went down to 160. So interview, there is a lot of randomness. The whole thing has a lot of randomness, but interview in particular has a little more of randomness. So, but mains is a lot more predictable. Mains is where 85% of the marks is, and mains is where randomness is a little less, because the questions, if I like simplify it, it's very obvious, but still everything revolves around 3 things. I'm talking about mains, like in syllabus whatever is written, then current and PYQ. People talk about PYQ, but we'll look into it a little more in detail, because PYQ, I think in some ways PYQ is more important than the other two in some ways, because if you solve PYQ last 10 years after 2013, most of these syllabus areas will be covered. So we'll talk about that in a little more detail. And prelims, just to put a start to the discussion, prelims, like there is 100 questions, you have to So this is my suggestions. You have to at least attempt 80-85. You want, so the last cutoff was around 75 if I'm not wrong. So that is like net 38 is what you want. Net 38, you attempt around 80. In that also, if you are strong in the static like history, economics and polity, you will get around 30-40 questions from there. Even like easy, medium questions, if you get it right, you will get 25. So you have 25 out of the net 38 from only those three. I'm saying leaving aside the questions that can go wrong. So you get 25 there, and then you have another 40-45 that you are attempting. You have 50-50, like somewhere you use a little bit of intelligent guessing, this, that. Still, if you get 20 out of that, you have 45. 20 correct. I'm saying 45-50. So you get that net 38 easily if you are strong in your static. And in that also, just focus a little more on polity, economy, history, and polity, economy in particular, the conceptual clarity is generally asked more. So if you are solving tests randomly, you want to do, you're bored, you're saturated with the preparation, you want to solve tests, I think polity and economy subject-wise tests help a lot more, because if you solve like 5 polity question papers of any institute or PYQ, I mean PYQ, so definitely you have to do it. On top of that, if you're doing some institute papers freely available here in internet, I think polity, if you do 5 tests, you will cover the entire Lakshmikant in many ways. If you do proper 5 like varied tests from economics, that will cover almost all the areas. I'm not saying entirely, but still you will get an idea, overview of everything. You go through the solutions, like there are only little things which can be repeated in polity, economy, and then it is mostly about conceptual understanding, like inflation, like how this is related to something else, exchange rate. So it is like basically, and these are things that repeat, how much ever attempts go on, because these are the things in news. Inflation is in news, this is in news, exchange rate is in news, something money supply. So these things go in round and round, some changes keep happening. So mostly some conceptual understanding around all these is asked. So be a little more, like practice a little more in polity and economics. Okay. Okay, and then we have the mains. We have 7 papers, main 7 papers. Then you have the interview. So interview is finally like in cricket, if you compare it, it is like the finishing, like final power play, second power play of finishing. It is more like if you get around 830, 840, then getting 160, 170, like let's say 1000 is your minimum target. If you get 1000, you will definitely get IAS. If you get 980, you will definitely get IPS. So somewhere around 990, let's say. So if you are strong and you get around 840, 830, 840 in mains, then something around 160, 170 in interview is not that difficult. Just that you have to be articulate, you have to be a little confident, and an interview is a stage where you can use a lot of your innovative stuff. Like if you have something, so I had architecture in my application form, then I had cricket, then I had Kerala. Like these are things that people are generally interested in, and then whatever you add in terms of your hobbies or anything. Okay, so we'll talk about mains in particular. We delve a little more detail in that. Okay, so what are the sources? So basically, I started off with basically just few books which everyone reads. So my basic rule is that I have to read things which are inevitable. Like Lakshmikant is still inevitable. I don't know if things have changed, but my guess is it's still very, very important, because there is no other alternative. Till an alternative comes, you'll have to read Lakshmikant, then Spectrum or Bipin Chandra or whatever, like, but one amongst the 2 or 3. So that is one is Lakshmikant, and then Geography 11th and 12th. So these are 3-4 books which I think are very, very important. The rest of the books depends on whether you think there's a use. So there's no clear, like let's say art and culture, this book, or even NCERT 6 to 10. So I read like history and geography 6 and 10 just quickly, and I like looked into what all factual stuff can come. Only like 6 to 10th and even NCERT in general, I feel beyond geography, I think it is only for prelim stuff. Like there will be some boxes, some content which can come from here and there. So in that way, I read the 6 to 10th, 6 to 12th geography history just quickly. Only 11th and 12th I focused more, like revision or proper reading happened only 11th and 12th geography. The other ones I looked into whether I can get some factual stuff, because I didn't want to read it again. So I only read it once, like 1 or 2 page notes of like hardly 5 page extra, some value addition for prelims, I would have noted down and then left those NCERTs. So basically I still think there's only 4 books that you have to read any which way. Lakshmikant, 1 Modern India Spectrum or the other one, and then 2 Geography NCERT. Then Art and Culture, I did read, like in first reading, I read Nitin Singhania sir's book, but then again, like whether it is that useful, it's difficult to predict. So I think once you do a complete reading about the basic books, Lakshmikant, Modern India, Ancient and Medieval, any one source, R.S. Sharma or any old NCERT or something, and then Environment, Art and Culture, Environment and Science and Tech is mostly current. So static, as I said, economy, polity, you have to read one, polity you have to read a book, Modern India you have to read a book, and geography you have to read a book. Economy, have a basic understanding either from 11th and 12th book or from some current compilation or some YouTube videos, or like you can get a basic idea of economics from some like simple source. You don't necessarily have to read an entire different book like your institute notes or the NCERT. Some basic understanding is sufficient for economics first reading, and then environment, science and tech and geography for prelims beyond the NCERT. You have to follow some like one newspaper, Hindu or Express. I read Indian Express more towards the like second, third, fourth attempt, and then some current compilation, just so like a lot of the things get like revision happens in that. And then if you miss something, like in newspaper, what happens? Generally after a point of time, you can only read the headlines, some columns and some articles which you think is important on that particular day. You tend to miss out on something, so just read some compilation, something which you think is good enough on top of the newspaper reading. And newspaper again, one newspaper, and at least like not minimum, but ideal I think would be half an hour, and at least like 3-4 days a week. Ideal is obviously every day, but if that is not happening, like at least 3-4 days a week, and the FAQ pages, the explained pages, just look into those more, because it will at least cover whatever has happened that week. Okay. Then so like some basic thumb rules for mains also, like one is like I think you have to simplify it. So my approach for prelims, and I still think like that is relevant because prelims is somewhere you don't know like what can come from what area, because the syllabus is also not that well defined. It is generally said Indian history after independence, geography of India and this thing. Like it's very vaguely and widely given. So prelims, I feel you have to like go into like in a little divergent way, like read a little more after the first reading, wherever you think you lack a little based on the PYQ after 2013. Just focus, like solve all the post 2013 papers, and like you make an assessment of yourself where you think you need a little more reading. Like I felt history is a little more factual, I will need a little more content, so I read some other books for history, but it depends on the time. So after one reading you have to, when you go for revision, revise it, like whatever you highlighted and made notes of or circled or something, and then solve PYQs, and then come to an assessment of which area you think gives more questions and where you have less content. So I thought history I needed more, ancient medieval, especially ancient and medieval, because I didn't read a separate book for ancient medieval. So then I focused on some books for ancient medieval, and then environment, science and tech, I solved the PYQs, and then found what areas people are, UPSC is generally asking. So one is the last 10-year things. So PYQs, how it helps, basically PYQ, either a question can come directly. Okay, so let's say there was a question, there are questions on money supply which have repeated exactly, like economy, I think last 2 years, at least 2 or 3 questions have repeated like verbatim. So that is one thing in which PYQs can help. So you have to solve last 10 years papers, and how you have to solve in the first reading, I feel, just solve, like arrive at the answer. Look at the question, like find what the answer is. That's like doing a paper. And the second, second round, you'll have to look at the options. Like look at the options and look into some detail for the option. Like if it is, so as I said, one is a question repeating, and another thing is the option coming as a question. So CRISPR-Cas9, I've been repeating it everywhere. Like CRISPR-Cas9, that question was an option in 1 year, and then it came as a separate question in another year, and in a year difference of 1 or 2 years. So even 2 marks makes a lot of difference, because 2 questions repeating is 4 marks. 1 or 2 options coming as questions, and other 4 marks. So in that way, we are talking about like 10-15 marks. 10-15 marks can easily make your day or ruin it. So PYQs is extremely important. And then PYQs, so Google the options a little more, like find what can come out of those, and have a basic conceptual understanding about the areas that are being asked. Like, so there was a question one year about gravitational wave, singularity, point or something. So all that is related to the same thing. If you don't have some conceptual idea about like what distinguishes singularity from, like singularity is that thing and that point is point of this thing, and the whole thing when the gravitational wave is the underlying principle. So options were all related to the same thing. So my point being, unless you have a like little bit of conceptual understanding about that area, it might be difficult to eliminate the options. End of the day, you have to eliminate. You can't realistically know everything. But then that area was a repeat of a question which came in the preceding year. So the whole point being, do the PYQs like very religiously. Look at the options. Look at the like Google it a little more. If it is gravitational wave, just Google it on like Google on gravitational wave. 1 para, 2 para is sufficient. Even if you have some basic understanding about the options, let's say genetics was very important, biology, genetics, how mRNA, mtDNA, all that works. If you had some basic idea, even 5 minutes of Googling was sufficient to have an idea. Even that would help a lot. Okay, then so talking about mains, okay, so mains there is only 3 things. You have GS 1, 2, 3, 4 syllabus in detail. Main syllabus is like extremely detailed. Then you have PYQs 2013 from 2013, and then you have current C1 current compilation and a newspaper, Indian Express or something. And while we'll start with current. So while reading for mains, I think you have to look into the newspapers with a like enjoy reading and enjoy collecting information also. Like let's say you are reading Indian Express. So and then so what I made, I had 4 notebooks, GS1, 2, 3, 4, and I had made initially first round I made 1 page, 2 page notes for every topic in the syllabus. Like if it is GS1, you have topic like secularism, regionalism, something like that. So you have like let's say 20-30 topics. I had divided that book into 2 pages for each, and then made one introduction, like 2-3 good introductions, 2-3 good conclusions, and body, like body with like 10 points. Like hardly it can be 10 pointer or 15 pointer. If you have 10 points, good points, for, against, steps taken. Like okay, I'll just write it simply. So there is an intro. So this is about value addition. I'll just talk about that, and then there is a conclusion. So this is stats, quotes, reports, including committee recommendations, law, examples, and diagrams. So this is like value addition. So basic structure for any topic in mains in that notebook had some good introductions, good like value addition. So this is the body. Okay, in this body you either need 10 good points or 15 good points, and this 10-15 good points you have to divide it into some subheadings. I'll put it here. So it is like you have to, for like some points for supporting that thing, let's say secularism, how it has been good, and some against, like refuting or issues against, or issues or concerns. And you can start with the status also, like when you're making notes. Status for or support, and then against or issues or concerns, then solutions. Then in solutions again already taken by government and needed. So this can be your conclusion also. So this, if I put it like a little more detail, I used to do, one was, I used to connect it with a goal of government, like 2047 being developed by 2047, or our goal in export is to increase exports to this level, some goals of India, or it can be committee recommendations. So for every topic there were separate separate committees. Like it is like civil servants who have headed committees, they have put on recommendations. Like let's say agriculture, you would have heard about Ashok Dalwai committee, at least some of you would have heard. Anybody? Ashok Dalwai committee? No, okay, it's okay. You would have heard of second ARC? Yes, Niti Aayog report. So those are like very famous ones. Venkatachalaya committee, NCRC, like national, all that you would have heard. So beyond that, for every topic you have separate committees which were headed by civil servants, and they have given some specific recommendations. Like let's say on rural development, there's a committee called Sumit Bose committee. So that committee has given some recommendations. Likewise for Panchayati Raj, there's an IR committee. All this you'll get from Telegram topper notes, everyone has it. I can also share. And like let's say water, there's Mihir Shah committee on water. So in that way, if you take some good 3 to 5 solutions, you can always have a ready-made and very solid conclusion for that area. If it is anything related to water, anything related to that, Mihir Shah committee is a good recommendations is a good conclusion. So it said you have to focus should shift from supply side to demand side, reducing the demand. It spoke like very solid recommendations. So the point being, when you're taking committee recommendations, examples or stuff, like tend to look into a little more detail, little more analysis, rather than just going at surface level approach. So generally some people, what they do, they just quote the committee and then they'll add some general stuff, like very general obvious stuff, but just put in some effort for every committee if you can, if you are doing that effort, and then find 3 to 5 good recommendations, solid solutions, because solutions are always useful. You can put it in this question or another question. If you are finding some solutions for and it is a ready-made note that you are preparing. You are preparing 2 to 3 good introductions. All this for every topic. This is for every topic in GS1, every topic in GS2, 3 and 4 not so much. 4 I took a different approach. So what is the status? And in this also status you can have the diagram with example. All this can be in this way also. Like all these are this SQR LED is like a frame which is within this subheadings. So you find statistics, course reports, law, committee recommendation example in this. What is the status? Let's say status of local self-government, a local status of agri-export, agri-marketing. You have such topic in GS3. So in general, if we get a question of agri-marketing, it is very difficult to give a very objective answer. Like the detailing will be very less. We will have some vague options coming, farm laws, ag mark, some things like quickly very general things will come. But if you have a very good note, look at what is the status with statistics, with some expert. If you are reading Indian Express, there is like an agri expert, Ashok Gulati. So he gives columns. He is very, and even you can quote that expert also. You can quote MS Swaminathan sir, you can quote Ashok Gulati sir. You can quote experts if you think they are famous, or you can quote committee recommendations. So from the top notes, or I'll also share. So there's a Ashok Dalwai committee that was put up by Government of India. So Ashok Dalwai committee has put up 4 to 5 reports, and like the reports are very bulky, but then towards the end you have recommendations. You can shorten it, make it into 3-5 good solutions, use it as conclusion, or put it in status, put it in for, against. You put okay, I'll like simplify it a little more. So there is 10 marker question and there is 15 marker question. If it is a 10 marker, roughly 10 points, 15 marker, roughly 15 points. This into 2 or 3 subheadings, 5 depending on the question, or you can, if you have more, 15 at least 2 or 3, like in general, or support, against, steps taken or way forward. In that way you divide it and then use these to improve the content, value addition. Okay. So this is just the general stuff about this thing. We look into a GS1, 2, 3, 4 a little more, in a little more detail. We'll cover something else in the meantime. So introduction, again I'll just divide so introduction again, like I'm just stating some, it's like thumb rules. You can have new ones also. So basically, how can you make an introduction? So it can be with a stat, like a quick stat, like it can be an index. Let's say a question on hunger comes. So you can put what is the status of hunger in India, global hunger index or something, or Niti Aayog, some data. So you're putting what is the status as an intro. So that's a very catchy intro. So just like they say in a speech or something, the introduction, the ending should be very good, and in between there should be some 1 or 2 good high points. So introduction should be high. You can use a stat, you can use an index, you can use a recent context. Like recently something came up. Let's say Supreme Court in this judgment said like some. So in GS2 I used to prepare a lot of court cases. Everyone does that, but a little more court cases. Like there are some very not so famous cases which you can use for even things like hunger. So there's a case called Patuma versus State of Kerala. In that there's a quote by the the Honorable Supreme Court, Kerala High Court, I think. So it said that right to life is not just mere animal existence. So something like that. So things like that, judgments, statements by the court connected to your question, you can use it as intro. Even you can use a court case, Supreme Court or preferably Supreme Court or any famous Kerala, High Court cases. Then you can you can even quote an expert's quote. Like this can be for introduction. Like if it's an ethics question, let's say question on, you can even use a definition. I mean, this is like less preferred by me, but you can use a definition also. Definition or etymology, something like that. What do you use in optional can be used here also. Like if there are 2 parts, you define the parts, then you get to the question. But this is like just some thumb rules or like quick pointers on how you can start an introduction. And this is like where the value addition for the notes is. So I had 4 notebooks as I said, and I prepared 2-3 pages of good introductions, conclusions, body and conclusions. Conclusions, as I said, committee recommendations. Committee recommendations or goals or what more needs to be done. So basically it will motivate you yourselves also, that you are preparing notes and preparing in such a way that you are always looking for solutions. Like whenever you are preparing for something, you are always looking at what more needs to be done. This is what the government has done. This is what needs to be done to achieve something, to get to a goal. Okay. Now optional. Okay. Before optional, I'll go ahead. Note making versus answer writing. So mains is mostly, when you are writing mains, you're mostly on an autopilot mode. By like once you're given at least 1 or 2 mocks, you'll understand that whatever, how much ever you are good in the subject, writing mains is like entirely different. Even if I might be good in, I am generally good in GS2 and GS4. But if a paper comes, it's 3 hours, there's 7 minutes for a question, me and another person are at the same disadvantage or advantage. So there is, it is all, you have to be, your notes should be too good, your revision should be too good. Memory recall also plays an important role in mains. So that should be very good, so that you are in autopilot mode, in good autopilot mode. Okay, so answer writing, whether that is important or note making is important. In 2020 attempt, I focused more on answer writing. I mean, obviously more for note making, but I gave a lot of answer tests also, because I had time. After that, I got after interview result, then only 1 week, then prelims, then mains. So after that, I did write some tests, some test series here and there, but I didn't get enough time for writing many tests. But I focus more on note making after my first or second attempt. But then in the first attempt, I wanted to know whether if I write this, how can I structure an answer? What are the possible introductions? What are the possible ways in which I can enrich the body? How can I write conclusions? And whether if I write it in this way, whether I'll get this, like whether I'll get a decent mark. So let's say for 100 to 120 is a good mark. Anything above 100 in GS is good. Anything above 110 is really good. So whether if I use all this, whether if I write it in this way, I'll get 100, 110. And then after getting some level of confidence, I was fine. Like in my first 2020 attempt, my GS was not that strong. I got only around 360. My optional was decent. Interview was good. And that way I got into reserve list. But after that, last 3 attempts I've been getting GS like 430, 440, somewhere around that. And written was not so much of a problem in the last 3 attempts. So because of that, last second attempt, because I got around 440 GS, third attempt I didn't write much, very few. This time nothing. So initially when you start out, I will suggest that you give some tests. And in that also most important is PYQ. If you can solve PYQs on your own, or if you have a group and then discuss amongst yourselves, that will be good. And then if you want to give tests somewhere, that is also your choice. but then write tests in the first serious attempt. After that, depending on what level you think, how much marks you're getting or what level you think you are, you can give more time and effort to note making. End of the day, I feel, because I have like tried to deconstruct it into very, very small things, like if it is 10 marker, it is 10 points, 2 subheadings. Like I have put in that kind of this thing because I relied more on note making, and then I relied more on brainstorming. So because I was not so confident, even after getting 121 this time, if I write down, whenever I tried to write a paper, I felt very underconfident because the questions are very specific. You don't have that much of content in quick recall, so it didn't help. So I was not able to write that kind of paper, so I didn't write much. But note making, because as I said, mains is more predictable. It only comes from this triangle, that syllabus, PYQ and current. If you have good notes and if you have made good structures, like if you have the status for every single topic in the syllabus and any off question that comes in the PYQ, like which is not directly from the syllabus, and then from current also. Like current also, I think you have to like pick 20, 30 very important topics from last, like let's say it's environment. Okay, let's say current is more important for GS 2 and 3. GS 1 is more static, geography, history, society. Society also you can't predict what question comes. Sometimes it's very theoretical. You just have to use your presence of mind and whatever content you have to analyze it. But 3 is entirely current. Economy, environment, science and tech, disaster, mostly it is current. GS 2, there is a lot of conceptual this thing, but still IR is entirely current. So IR, let's just take, let's say IR, you have 10, 15 very important topics in the last 1 year. Mostly question will come from those only. Like whenever there is a major G20 SCO, something major, that question came. So even though you can't predict SCO question will come, that SCO question, if it was in news, if you've been following news and one compilation properly, you will know that that was one amongst the 10 very important things. So you can predict those questions. Economy also, economy, environment, science and tech and all, I think can be predicted very well. Like IAS, Chandrayaan 2, Chandrayaan question was like one amongst the 5 questions which were more probable. So in that way, current also prepare 10, 15 very, very important questions from all GS2, 3 topics in particular. Okay, now after note making versus answer writing, we have another doubt whether it's test series, writing the test series or brainstorming. So as I said, first serious attempt, try to write a little more, because how much ever content you have, how much ever you are competent and all that, that feeling of writing in that paper is also important, I feel. Like you have this kind of a paper, you have very little space here, you can only write, so it's 150 words, like 75 words in a page. So getting used to that also might help. End of the day, so that also you can try in the first serious attempt. After that, once you're comfortable, probably brainstorming is good enough. Okay, now content heavy or innovation heavy. So I come from a design background, although I've not gone into that this thing, but I feel that innovation also, like something creative in the sense not creative, something innovative. Like if you are, so as I was saying, like if everyone is doing something, if this becomes very common, like something like that becomes very common, then try to have something on your own. Like adding a diagram in every question, people have been talking about this for some time, but even now it's very, very difficult to add a diagram in every question, unless you have made diagrams which can be tweaked as per the question for every topic in GS. And like every subtopic of GS. If you don't have one, like this time what I did, I prepared 3 graphs and 1 flowchart for every topic in GS. So this is like too much of work. I was like working on top of whatever I was doing, not needed, but I'm saying like if you have, so I wanted to ensure that my presentation looked good in terms of having a diagram in every question and not just any diagram. So it was like I wanted to do increase the detailing of the question. So if it is agriculture, like what is the level of stock holding in terms of numbers, like what is the level of stock holding where in, so there are some types of diagrams which I generally add. So one is like it's a very simple India diagram, like in let's say education, Kerala what is the level, comparison with Bihar what is the level, in Jharkhand where is the level, like 4 comparison. And then there is another diagram which can easily be done, like this is India's some health status, who are the positive outliers, who are the negative outliers. Then another question, another diagram like flowchart diagram, like one leading to another, or something like like some diagrams also, it improves the presentation, and you can compress the notes well, like you can combine 4-5 examples into a flowchart. In that way, it improves the presentation and you are adding more content also. Okay. And innovation heavy, as I was saying, so in ethics what I did, ethics, okay, we'll discuss that in detail about ethics. So just few things more and then we'll go into GS 1, 2, 3 for a little more detail. And in this whole process, I think like mental health is also very important. Everyone keeps talking about this. You just started, how many of you are first attempters? All of you. Second attempt? Third attempt? Okay. So by second and third attempt, you will understand more that mental health is very, very important. Because this process, even the first attempt, it takes at least 2 years. Like you start in June, next June is the prelims. After that 3 months, 4 months, then mains, then 4 months interview, then 2 months result. So 2 years is gone. You started 23, suddenly you are 25. Second attempt, you are suddenly 26. Third attempt, like it goes very quickly. In that time, suddenly some will get married, some will get better jobs, some will go to US. A lot of things keep happening, so it's important that you stay, like it's important to remind yourself why you started and whether that drive is still there, whether that motivation is still there. And there is a lot of things that you can use to keep yourself motivated. Like look at the people who have look at the people who have done some good job, not toppers like me who have just cleared. We also have very little idea about the system, but then actually people like you would prepare for ethics, like people who have done some really good work, and because that is what we are also trying to do. Let's say like there's Aruna Soundararajan ma'am, IAS Kerala cadre. She was behind the Kudumbashree mission. She was also part, like everything is part of a group effort, but she was also part of many such efforts. Like the Kudumbashree mission had the contribution of very important civil servants. So something like Kudumbashree, if I can put in a little more detail, like you would have heard about Kudumbashree mission, no? Like it's like self-help group mission, like system in Kerala. And in that, like around 1/3 or 1/4 of the families in Kerala is covered. So you are talking about social inclusion at that scale. Like every 1 in 3 or every 1 in 4 is covered under a mission. Like, and you get to be part of such kind of a mission, either at the implementation or later at the designing stage. But I mean, isn't that actually huge? You are able to do something which can help very, very like needy, very important, very vulnerable people, and at such a great scale. And even in other services also, foreign service, you are important. You will be part of very important discussions. You might be the factor that can stop something great, something bad from happening. And let's say in police, you have people like Kiran Bedi ma'am, you have people from like Dowal sir. I mean, you have a lot of very, very important people in the system, and that should probably keep you motivated for the whole thing. That is my point. And not just the people, even very important schemes also, like even a Cyberdome. If someone has looked into PYQ, something like Cyberdome also involves, like let's say you are from an IT background or tech background, you can be very instrumental in designing some policies in police, in service, designing in the sense not actually designing but part of the team. So you will be part of very, very important and very like important things that can have a far-reaching impact. And to keep myself motivated, I remember another thing that I used to tell myself. Let's say I want to help somebody, educate somebody. I can educate one person, 2 people. After that, I'll also have my limitations. If you are part of something that changes the education policy, you will be changing. You will be able to, I mean, not singularly, but as part of a group, you will be able to touch something that will change. Like let's say right to education made education till 14 mandatory. If you are involved even in a little way in something like that, you will be able to positively contribute and feel good about yourselves for a very, very long time, because policy level changes can make a very huge and sustainable long term impact. So just keep yourself also motivated, even if it is second, third attempt, or even if it is first attempt and you have had a very bad breakup or you lost someone or something like that. Just keep yourself motivated. End of the day, motivation is very, very important. Okay, so we'll look into detail GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay, before that, I'll just take 1 or 2 questions, if anything, like if you have any quick questions.
So how do you combine all this data, revise all these facts?
So as I said, I made 4 notebooks. So I had GS1 one book, 2 another book, 3 another book, 4 another book. And then I made initial first thing note making, 2 pages for every topic. There will be 20-30, so there will be like 40 pages, 40-50 page max even in the first round with introduction, with all this. Like if I cover almost all of this, I would have made 40 pages, 50 pages of good content. I can write any question and I would make some notes about PYQ questions that are not direct. So as I said, it's PYQ or syllabus or current. Current, you pick the 10 topics which are more likely from that for your year. If you are writing 25 from June, another 1 year, whatever is in news very like significantly, prepare notes on that. And that way 1 or 2 page notes on everything, including the structure, including the dimensions. Like which all will you hit? Let's say you're, so for ethics I had another structure, MSRCR. Any ethics question, meaning, support it, refute it, compare it, and then what is the relevance. So this is like based on the PYQ, you look at what all can be written. It's like brainstorming, and then you arrive at, okay, what can be the structure, what can be the frame, what can be the introduction, what can be this thing, and then you'll put in the content based on the question. So you prepare notes, you prepare some frames and structures based on looking at topper notes, looking at PYQs, just 2 or 3 things, and then you will have some notes. That is sufficient in the first round before revision, and that way you would have made notes. Any?
So, what is the role of peer group discussion in enriching analysis?
Peer group discussions I think are very good if you have a good peer group. Like I didn't have, I prepared alone mostly. Interview stage I had some good groups and made some good friends also, but prelims I don't know how much it is useful, because prelims as I said, I always had this thing that in prelims you have to go very wide and you have to come down in mains. Mains is very predictable, you have to focus it, you have to narrow it down, short notes, make it very simple. Prelims, if you read a little more, you'll have more content. In that way, prelims I don't know how much group discussions can help, but yes, if you have a very motivated group, you can divide the work amongst yourselves. For revision you can assign differently, but then like make sure that you choose a very good group. For mains it can help a little more, and for interview definitely.
So, is it compulsory to have a...
No, definitely no. Okay, any quick questions?
What should be the approach towards the prelims as the pattern change in 2023?
Okay, like I don't know whether pattern has exactly changed. It is only the options, how the options are written has changed. So if you were relying on like if it is odd it is this, if it is even, if it is that, then it changed. Otherwise I don't think it has changed so much. Like questions have not changed. The wording of the questions by UPSC has also not changed. Questions from polity, economy are still important. History is still important. Current is as subjective as ever. It is only that 1 only, 2 only, that kind of options have come. So I don't think pattern has changed that much. But strategy for prelims, I think keep it simple. So one is, as I said, static. These 3 things, polity, economy, history, still gives you marks to enter. That is where everyone is strong. If polity you are not strong, whoever is strong will get in, because everyone is reading that. Everyone is strong in economy because it is conceptual. Everyone is strong in history, it's static. If 30 questions comes from that, that is where the real competition is. If you get 28, then you are in a very good position. Out of the 40 from those 3, if you get 30, 35, you are in a very good position. Then you just have to get like 10, 20 net from the 40, 45 you are attempting. So be strong in the static, like revise any one current that you are following for environment, science and tech and geo. Geography also, I think unlike mains, in prelims it's mostly current. Very little theory questions are coming these days, but it's a pattern. So static, be strong, current, any one, follow it very well. So I didn't make much notes from Lakshmikant, at least for prelims I didn't make. I only made like 2-3 page notes from, as I said, NCERT books, which I didn't want to read again. Lakshmikant I highlighted, I like circled or wrote something on the side. For prelims I did tests, as I said, polity, economy, I felt it was more from conceptual understanding. and it is not realistically possible to read the entire Lakshmikant book. So one thing is like you can either read areas which you think are more like more probable to be asked from. Let's say fundamental rights, DPSP. Look at the last 5 years questions more, and then like find out which areas are more likely to be asked. Like initial, like basically since it's conceptual, I feel in the initial first half of the Lakshmikant is slightly more important, and some areas like parliament, some areas like local government, some local government also rarely asked, but parliament and things. So find out the areas, and then no need to make notes because it's very difficult. But you can solve more tests for polity. If you like solve good 5 tests, 500 questions, it should cover almost the entire thing. Okay, so I'll just talk about a little more. Okay, so I'll okay, so we'll start with ethics and essay, little more interesting, then we'll go into GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so ethics basically, so ethics I think most important thing is syllabus. Even PYQ also I didn't solve I didn't solve many PYQs for ethics. I felt syllabus is more important. If you have good notes from the syllabus, so that will be more helpful. I feel like if you anything related to attitude, so there are like few things. I'll put down the thing also. So I made a mnemonic. So this is the entire syllabus. This is determinants of ethics. This is the role of family, friends. This thing, consequences. So determinants is like causes. This is consequences. This is attitude, aptitude, probity, emotional intelligence. This is the entire syllabus. And somewhere any question that comes, I feel like a simple way to approach it is like you look at the syllabus to arrive at the dimensions. Any question can be analyzed from the dimension of what is the causes, what are the determinants of that, corruption, what are the determinants, what are the consequences, what is the role of family, what is the role of education, what is the role of anything like that. Depending on the question, you change the determinants. What is the role of attitude? What is attitude in the sense you have again 3, if you have read a little, cognitive, behavioral, like aspects. So that is again. Then what is the role of aptitude? Civil service values. What is the role of probity, emotional intelligence? And this again, like basically syllabus, emotional intelligence. What are the 5 parts Goldman said? Goldman model of emotional intelligence. Like once you have prepared, do you know emotional intelligence, Goldman model, anybody? No. Okay, you might have heard. Okay, it's okay. Basically, like basic models, basic things which everyone reads. Emotional intelligence, if you Google a little, you will have a Goldman model. He talks about basic things. If you talk about probity, again probity in the syllabus, again it talks about 3-4 things. Like corruption, then it talks about work culture. Like basically the syllabus provides a lot of dimensions which you can use to arrive at the points. As I said, if it's a 10 marker, roughly 8-10 points even for ethics. And there is a structure, as I said, MSR, CR. You talk about any question, even if it is a code question, theory question. I'm talking about theory part, not case study. So you talk about what you understand, what is the definition, what you understand. Then you provide some justification like support. Like in quoting, you substantiate it with some theory, some thinker, like Aristotle, Indian thinkers, Greek thinkers, some existentialism, if you're fond of Kafka, all that, anything. And then you refute it. Because in ethics, refuting is important in GS also, but it is more so important in ethics because ethics is about, there is no real answer, there is no correct answer in ethics, it's about opinions. So you have to have that multidimensionality. So you have to have a counter argument, so have refute. Like let's say, truth is beauty, or truth leads to justice, or truth leads to something else. You can, so the instinct is to support it. Like truth will lead to justice, you will provide according to existence, according to deontology, according to consequentialism, like that. But then whether truth will always lead to justice, so you can give a counter narrative, not always, and then provide an example. Let's say we fought for independence for so very long, There were many people who died before getting independence. So can we say that in their lifetime whether truth led to justice? I mean, this is just an argument. You can again use it according to the question. Like if you are putting it in the other way, you can say even though they died, their efforts ultimately led to justice. But based on the question, you can frame it accordingly, whether you putting it in supporting it or in the refuting stage. But be sure to add counter arguments. That is the point. Comparison also you can add, like comparing this idea with another idea. And then relevance. In relevance, you can try to connect it with some policy, some act. Like even if it is a very general ethics question, just if you think, if you can connect it with some policy, some law, something like that, it might be a little useful. Okay, so I think syllabus is most important. Have some notes, and then there is no current. Current is only for your notes. You can add whatever current, like there's a whistleblower in FB, Facebook. You can add it into the syllabus. So ethics is very easy, and in ethics you can add some extra content also, like in ethics and essay also, like some pop references, some movies, literature, philosophy, sports, and try to tick 4 boxes. One is the individual, one is the society, one is philosophy, and one is governance. Every question try to tick, like from an individual perspective, how is it important, for the society, how is it important, for governance, how is it important, or how it is harmful, and for philosophy in the sense thinker theory existing, like different thinkers theories are there. Once you start preparation full on, you will get to know. Okay, then ethics case study. Should I like go into detail on how to frame a case study and all, or? Okay, I'll just quickly put a frame. So case study is basically any case study. You can have a simple frame. Who are the stakeholders? Everyone uses this, but I'll just put that down again. Who are the stakeholders? What are the issues at stake or values at stake? What are the options? Options, like what are the pros, what are the cons? Then which option you took and course of action. So in this I try to like use some extra content, like there's something called design thinking, there's something called systems thinking, theory of change, something like that. Like there are some models. So in that there is some frames, like in design thinking it talks about you empathize, then you define, then you like make a prototype, then you test it, you have a feedback, and then it is a loop. So this loop, I try to use this to solve the basic content. Like I wrote who are all the stakeholders, issues at stake, and then before course of action, I would add this content. Like I would look at like empathize with the stakeholders, define the problem well, like look at what are the options, would look at this thing, finally create a feedback in the sense, you have apps like Pragati app, or you have some CPgrams, you have a problem, you go there, you tell it, then that is corrected, the program gets corrected. So basically you have a full system, and then this thing can be tweaked according to the question, like define according to question, consult stakeholders, which stakeholders, options, which options, feedback loop, which feedback, like technological or this thing. And another this thing is like in solution, course of action, have an operational, technological and attitudinal solution. Like any ethics question, because so I'm talking about case study. So there will be a big case study. You look at, you solve with who are the stakeholders, what are the issues at stake or values at stake, what are the options, pros, cons. In course of action, generally that is where you can innovate, that is where you can add detail. So in course of action, always ensure that you have an attitudinal solution, because it's an ethics paper. You have a technological solution, again like let's say a management information system like Pragati, decision support system like this, or feedback loop like this, or anything depending on the question, like even KPIs, key performance indicators, like have a system with KPIs like this. According to the question, then you add what all need to be added. So this is about, this is about attitudinal. Then operational, like process, like if you want to solve, correct the process, in every, let's say it's a land issue, you will have an act, you will have a process, so you correct the process. That is like operational solution. Technological solution is like you change the software, you change this thing. Attitudinal solution is like you use theory and then try to find some solutions. Like, okay, so this is like basic this thing, and this is like some things which I try to innovate in the basic frame. So my point is like this is the basic frame. Any case study, you just have to write who are the stakeholders, what are the issues at stake or values at stake, what are the options, pros and cons. Again, use theory or constitution. Like there is another thing, what are the sources of ethics? Like there is LCR, L2, C2, R2, law, leader, constitution. One was there, rules and regulations. So anything, you can have a law as a source, like you're saying this is good because this law says so. You are saying this is good because a leader or a thinker has said so. You are saying this is good because constitution says so, article this thing says so. You're saying this is good because there's a rule that says so. In that way. Pros, again cons. Or you can use theories also, like according to deontology, even the fact that you think wrong is wrong or something. According to consequentialism, like consequences are wrong, so this is wrong. Once you read a little more, I think you might be able to appreciate it a little more and then innovate a little and add diagrams also. So that's for ethics. I think we are running out of time. So we'll talk about GS 1, 2, 3 quickly. So GS 1, 2, 3, as I said, the structure remains the same. There's an intro, there's a body. Body is with value addition, SQRLED, and there's a conclusion. Conclusion is generally solutions, forward looking. Body again, subheadings, 2 subheadings or 3 subheadings, 10 points or 15 points. Then, there are some things which are specific to the paper. Okay, so let's talk about GS2. So GS2, you have constitution, which is bulk. I think 10 questions are roughly 10 comes from constitution. You have IR, which is 4 to 5. Then you have social justice. You have around 4 or 5, I think. Roughly, I think these are all that is there. If I miss something, I'm sorry. So basically, this is what is it. So in this constitution, what extra can you add? In constitution, you can add things like judgments. Judgments, again, everyone says about judgments, but you can innovate. So there was one question about comparison between India, US, India and UK judiciary. So looking at the PYQ, I understood that questions from UK, US are more important for India's constitutional listing. So I just tried to add some cases from US, UK. So there is a two Gina Miller cases. Then in US you would have heard some cases. I'm saying it's not that important, but it gives you a little edge, because you would have heard Roe versus Wade. Last year it was in news. Something like Marbury versus Madison, if you're reading Hindu. So something like that, if you just Google it in 1 minute, you'll get some famous 5 US cases, 2 UK famous cases, because it came in PYQ. So I'm saying, how did I arrive at this? Because it was in PYQ. Because comparing US and UK judiciary, in Lakshmikant, I'll have 2 points, like 1 parliamentary supremacy and 1 this thing. But I'll have to write 10 points, 15 points, something more than what everyone else writes. Because that question came, so I prepared note, it came somewhere else, I wrote it. Or I can use this in some other question. So one is judgments, then opinion of judges, Chief Justice or any judge famous quote on something, and then note on all parts like basic structure, like in the syllabus it is given in about basic structure about this. So for everything, prepare an introduction, prepare a conclusion, and then make sure you have good, in that 1 page note you have the articles, you have the cases, you have schedule, article, like basically detailing, increase the detailing. And then GS2 so constitution mostly like that. IR is like current entirely current. Follow any one compilation religiously. Prepare like introduction, conclusion also in general. Expert opinion, like if you're reading columns, you will get opinions of thinkers, former diplomats, even existing diplomats and stuff. Social justice is like different vulnerable communities, women, SC, ST, OBC. Then old age, old people, then disabled. So have, like as I said, for notes for each section, if it is separately given, 1 page, 2 page note, look at what are the laws, what are the policies. If you remember, I spoke about what is the status, what are the steps taken, what are the concerns, what government schemes are there, and what more needs to be done if any committee recommendation has spoken. In that way, for every section of the syllabus in social justice, IR also in general it is mostly current, but look at the syllabus also. Constitution mostly again it will be PYQ or general understanding like about basic structure or about rights in environmental rights. So if you be very strong in court cases, like there were some questions I remember where entirely the 10 points would be entirely court cases. Like I'll have an argument and then I'll substantiate it with the court case. But I had cases for women, I had cases for environment, I had cases for everything. It is not like a general list which everyone is studying. Beyond the Maneka Gandhi case or beyond the famous cases, have more cases depending based on PYQ, based on things in news, like have 5 cases at least. So that gives you proper solid 5 points. Then, okay, in here also in status and graphs and all, like prepare some data. If it is education, what is India's this thing versus what is the world. In India also, what is the education in here and what is in this state, or like some specifics in terms of status, in terms of graphs and all that, prepare. So that is GS2. GS1, you have history, you have geography, you have society, art and culture. Art and culture, 1 or 2 questions are coming, so any one source is enough. What I did, I looked at this PYQ, like more likely questions are from architecture or literature or sculpture. So these are like from PYQ, so have a frame for that. If architecture question comes, what can be the introduction or what can be the frame? I can hit the materials, I can hit the structure, I can hit the aesthetics, I can hit what all parts can I hit. If it is a literature question, prose, poetry, like what all dimensions can I hit for very predictable areas. Sculpture also, in what all, like as I said, it is either 10 marker or 15 marker. So I need a frame for what all dimensions can I hit so that I can come up with 10 points. So that frame I can make. But art and culture, any one source is sufficient because only 1 or 2 questions generally come. Society, I had Anthro, so I tried to connect with that. Society also, look at the PYQs and what all are the parts that are given, like communalism, secularism, regionalism, what all are the areas, have 1 or 2 page notes with proper structure, dimensions to be hit, introductions, conclusions, expert opinions, everything. Even committee recommendations can be added, like there is the Sachar committee, there is the Ranganath Mishra committee. So you have recommendations, like take 2 or 3, even if you use Copilot, you can quickly get 2-3 recommendations from that committee. If you know this thing, you can get 2-3 solid solutions. Take that. Then geography, most questions I think come from, for mains, geography is extremely important, nearly 10 questions come. History, I think 4 or 5 questions come. Questions are reducing, and world history. World history also very few questions are coming nowadays. Any one source is good enough for world history, just main things, World War, what are the main areas. Any like basic understanding of the world history is good enough, and then just try to connect it. Again, in world history, try to connect it with current. Like if it is World War II, connect it with Ukraine war. Connect, like in history always there is a connection between, so in the essence of history is like time, chronology. So connect it with the previous event, connect it with the next event. In geography, the essence is like space. So you should have a diagram, you should have spatial analysis of, I mean this is a big word but not that big, like analyze it in terms of diagrams, analyze it in terms of space in geography. And in geography also have the frame, like what, even if it is a physical geography question, try to ensure that you are addressing the human part. Even if it is a human geography question, because it is intertwined. And in that also geography, like you would understand that even if it is an oceanography question, like it is always coupled. So there is atmosphere, there is oceano, this thing, and then geomorpho, that all things are like connected. So any question you should be trying to make it multidimensional by adding the other thing also. Try to understand which part will be relevant, and some areas you can have some specifics also, like let's say climate change, like some numbers, how much sea level is risen. I'm saying for mains, like how much of this thing has increased, acidity has increased, or how much of pH in seawater, like some statistics which can be given in any question. In oceanography, any question that comes you can write it. Anything related to climate change you can write it. Anything related to atmosphere, let's say how much of CO2 has increased, like some specifics you can add, it will help. And in geography, as I said, so you have to hit the 2 boxes, human and physical, and then the different parts like geophysical, climatology, all those. Then here also committees in solutions, like in geography I have noted that some areas are more important from PYQ. One is water, industrial location, one disaster is asked, and then Like there are like 4 or 5 areas which are like every time asked. One is one environment question, one disaster, one this thing, industrial location, water related, water, river, sea water, this water, something. So in that way you can predict for like 5-6 areas. And for that, prepare some good solid notes. If it is water, like as I said, Mihirsha committee recommendations, some related in that also, what all more important in that year. In a disaster, which disaster was more important? If earthquake is more important that year, like have some content, like some specific content and some basic diagrams also. Like if it's a landslide, like have that diagrams in like. So in geography, what I prepared is like I had 2 pages of all the diagrams. So while revising 2 pages of diagrams, you can quickly complete it. Finally, when you have notes, your notes should be in such a way that you can complete it in like half an hour, 1 hour. Just if you're giving GS2 after GS1, your notes should be so concise that you can completely revise the notes between GS1 and 2. For ethics, notes should be so short finally that you can revise it after GS3. So in that way, geography, I had 1 page of all the key dimensions in geography based on syllabus, based on geography syllabus and all that. And then 1 page on diagrams, which are very important, 1 page on committee recommendations, like PYQ questions solved, all that. So like hardly 4-5 pages, finally you can revise it, everything will be over. And geography is most important in GS1. History, again, like basic reading of whatever you have read is good enough. Just try to connect it with the previous events, next events, and then some value addition and introduction, conclusion can also be given. Like and in prelims also, whatever notes you have, just try to for mains notes it should be very concise. So my modern India note for GS1 was more like in 1 page, what are the tribal movements, just the name, because after revision I'll know what it is. 1 para on what are the civil service related this thing, what all movements, what all laws, what all changes, 1 on police, 1 on judiciary, 1 on administrative changes. Like in 1 page, what all are all the changes, just the names. So while revising, I just need to have pointers. If I know that point, I can quickly generate a point. And then 1 page on like who all are the main leaders, movements, their ideologies. Something like ideology, goal, cause, consequence. Like some frames while you are making, you can prepare. In that way, your notes can be very short. And then I prepared some diagrams also. Like any history question, you can like, this is the event in question, this is the previous event, this is the next event. And then if you have some extra content, you can put it in a box, like value addition. Then there will be like some graphs that I prepared. So per capita PPP comparison, India and UK. So India started at 200, now India is like 2000, between 2000 3000. UK started at 150, now it is like 40k plus. This convergence, you can say it is industrial revolution, it is colonialism. Like basically adding some specific content, some specific data, and it gives a feeling of comparison analysis. It's good. In that way, all the notes, history notes again only 4-5 pages for mains finally. Geography 10-12 pages, and then society, world history and art and culture, any reading is enough, and 1 or 2 basic structures are important. So that is about GS1. Now GS3, like the frame is same. GS3 only the thing is like current relevance is more. Like economy, in environment, science and tech, and disaster, almost entirely everything is more. The questions will come from the last 2 years, 3 years significance. So just follow 1 newspaper very well, and then 1 compilation also well, and solve the PYQs. And in general, GS3 is not rewarding nowadays, but you never know, because there was a time when GS3 was giving 130 plus and all. Nowadays, now the trend is like above 100 in GS3 is very difficult. Like last 2-3 years, I've been getting in 80s, 90s, and above 100 very few are getting. GS2, GS4 is becoming very rewarding. 120 plus and all is becoming very easy. But GS3 is where you will have to put a lot of effort, because unlike GS4 after a point it is revision and example adding. GS2 also theory, conceptual, again you can, it's fun to this thing also. GS3 is like content heavy, factually heavy. You have, when you're making notes, you will have like 1 full book, like it will be filled out. So in that way it will have a lot of notes, you'll have to prepare a lot. Here the amount of statistics, committee recommendations, graphs and everything is like multifold. But then you have to prepare, even though it is not that this thing, because at some point, at some year that can fetch you 120, 130. If the scaling changes and if you're not strong in GS, it will again backfire. So be strong in every paper. So that is basically about the preparation mains and this thing. Optional, I'll just briefly go through the optional. Like have everyone picked the optional or anyone yet to pick the optional? Nobody. So you are waiting, trying to find out. Okay. Like take your time. Like I think 3 to 6 months of preparation is good enough for optional. And by September, October, if you can properly start and finish it by Jan, then you are in a good state. Initially, even if you take some time to select, it's fine. But then optional preparation, like if you're starting in May, June, like start with the GS basic books and all, but prepare with optional also. Once you're selected, give some good quality time, make notes, complete all that by Jan, and then you're good to go for prelims. Like 2-3 months before prelims, even if you read a little bit of optional, focus more on prelims. So by Jan, Feb, try to complete your optional and have the notes and everything. You can even give a test series if you want or solve the PYQs by then. So that's about optional. And in optional, again, value addition, you can, so topper notes are very, very, very good. Look into Telegram, try to find out which topper had same notes. Try to see his topper copies, try to see the notes, this thing. And then you can also add case studies for Anthro. I don't know it is how relevant for which one. I had Anthro, so I took search for case studies from JSTOR, like EPW things. Everyone does that. I'm saying, but selectively. The case study will be a little more detailed, but only like 2-3 lines. And that way you can add a lot of extra content also. But mostly from the basic books and topper content itself, you will have a good understanding. Okay. Any questions?
Any point about
Essay. So essay is also like ethics mostly. Essay basically, so essay, ethics, interview are stuff where you can add a lot of your own content. Your own content in the sense, not general studies content, pop culture, references, movies, things that motivate you or interest you. Like there'll be some movies, like some people like Batman, some people like this thing, some people like poetry. So you can use a lot of that in essay. Like there is no definitive answer to how to write an essay. Basic thing is like introduction, body, conclusion. You have a 14 pages, roughly 12-13 pages for an essay. You have to write 1 page introduction, 1 page conclusion. I mean, it is an introduction. Whatever you write becomes the introduction. Last page becomes the conclusion. You have 10 pages roughly to write. And let's say 2 paragraphs effectively, 2 or 3 is maximum that you can write in a page. So you have to write like 24-30 paragraphs. So basically it is like every paragraph one new idea or one new argument. So you have to have 20 to 30 arguments. In that, again, like in GS, you have to divide it in terms of, let's say the essay topic is you can't step into the same river twice. If that is the essay topic, you talk about, as I said in ethics, talk about the meaning, start with a good introduction and then divide it into arguments, like 20-30 arguments, support it in terms of you can go it into different sectors, like in economics. In economics, like don't use the pestle, that technique, like literally economics, politics and all. Go into a little more detail. In economics also go into something inside economics, like let's say in this sector or in this thing, or go into things like game theory, complementarity, principle of this thing, that thing. Like go into economics, go into politics, in this thing, in some area, in education, in architecture, in cinema. Or in between you can add a lot of spontaneity also. Like in between the page you can suddenly add a little bit of poetry, add a quote. You can add, like you can generate interest in terms of that. Basically the essay idea is only that you have to stick to the topic and then have multiple dimensions, like look at it, analyze it from different standpoints. So, but then you can, like 1 page, like you have the introduction. Okay, another thing is like they say, generally introduction is very important, conclusion is very important, and in between there has to be coherence. Coherence between the paragraphs, coherence between the pages, and overall coherence. So you can either, if you are writing an introduction, so I'll say what I did this time. There was some songs and this thing, poetry and all that I collected, and there's a song by Billy Joel. So that song is like, we didn't start the fire, it was always burning. And then he quoted like World War, this thing, 4-5 names thing, and he stated, and then he said, we didn't start the fire, it was always burning. So there was some question on social justice or something. So I thought I can use that reference and then tweak it a little in the conclusion. So I used that, some problematic events, said we didn't start the fire, it was always burning. then started, okay, what does this mean? And then in politics, in this thing, in this state, in world, and in India, in different dimensions, I try to analyze it. Then finally, I try to look at the solutions, what all were done, and then the conclusion was again echoing the introduction, like solutions, and then we didn't start the fire, but we sure try to fight it. Basically, a little bit of coherence, a little bit of continuity, and a little bit of your own content. Like it is not like GS 10 points, 10 different things, statistics, this thing, but a little more of fun, a little more of emotion and all that. You can add a little more of different things. And in that essay, and another essay, I try to start with a thought experiment. Like you can engage the reader, you can ask some, so there is something called the marshmallow experiment, everyone would be knowing. Like you get 2 chocolates today or 5 1 week later, what will you choose? So it's like you ask, you put a situation, you ask the questions, and then you generate an interest, and then you look at the analysis, like you analyze it from different standpoints, politics, economics, or this thing, or you can use the SDG. You have 17 dimensions in SDG, which can be used. You have GS syllabus, which again you can use everything for the syllabus, I mean for the topic in question. And then conclusion, I try to connect it with that thought experiment. So there are multiple thought experiments, like there's a Stanford prison thought experiment, like anyone, like they say individuals are not bad themselves. When someone becomes the jailer or given a powerful position, that position, like, so in that way you can add thought experiments if it is pertinent, if it is relevant to the question in this thing. And in that way you can add a lot of things which based on the question you can add, like you can start with a poem, you can end with a poem, you can start with a quote, you can start with questions, and then look at it, like it's like peeling an onion. You just look at it from different standpoints. Let's say it's a sculpture piece, and you are looking at it from, you are walking around the sculpture piece, you are looking at it from different dimensions. So you look at it in terms of sectors, in terms of people, stakeholders, in terms of GS dimensions, anything. And then finally, remember to have some high points, like poetry or movie dialogues or some quotes or something like that, and then have coherence in the overall thing from introduction to conclusion. Essay is not that difficult, just have a practice and be original. I think being original in essay, ethics and interview, it really helps. Okay, anything else?
For geography, only NCRT was something.
NCRT, and as I said for mains, I was looking at areas which are repeating. For that I looked into a little more, like Mirsha committee recommendations I looked in for water, PYQ, based on PYQ industrial locations, so I read a little about industrial locations. Like based on GS, what all areas are specified, you can read a little more.
Sir, if I attempt means questions there in this subject, I like comprehension after reading NCRT, like
I didn't hear you.
I'm not able to provide enough content for the answer.
So I'm saying it is better if you have some notes, some frames, then write the answer. Like look at the PYQ last 10 years, try to answer it, like you know what to answer. Like I mean you can think about what can be introduction, look at what all can be hit, you can create a frame and then try to recreate that frame in the question that you are attempting. Like suddenly when you get a paper, it is difficult to come up with points, but if you know in geography I have to hit geomorphology, if it is you have to hit ocean, this thing, if you have to hit atmosphere, you have to hit the human side. In that way you have a frame, then you will be able to come up with better points.
Sir, but I was asking that
Content NCRT is sufficient, then you reading current, you are reading environment compilation, or in newspaper you are reading, like you have a lot of examples from the newspaper. Every day you will have a fire here, you will have something there, everything is happening. So you can just add content from there and solve the PYQs also. Solving PYQs also gives you content. Okay, anything else?
Sir, how many hours you used to study in all your politics?
Like so I think it should not be looked into in terms of hours as such, because the only thing that you are doing ideally should be preparation, unless you are doing a job. So don't think of it in terms of hours, just divide it in terms of the content that you have to cover. How much are you covering, how much you are not covering. Even if you are not covering, just push it to another day, but try to ensure that you are doing it smartly. Like first one reading is over, so anything that comes you are able to at least attempt it, and then next time you have a little more value addition, you prepare some notes. Don't look at the test in terms of marks, don't look at it in terms of, like just decide that you are clearing it. You will clear it at some point, unless there is a heavy amount of unluck or that some things which are not in your hand, you should be clearing. That is what your attitude should be. So go with that attitude, and then don't look at the number of hours, because hours don't generally matter. There are people who prepare for 10 years, don't clear. There are people who clear it in the first attempt. So hours don't generally matter. Just decide that whatever has to be completed will be completed. You are doing the current every day. You are reading what portion of the static you have decided in that day. In that way, if you are doing it, you are well on road. Even with 2-3 hours every day, if you are every day putting it properly, 4 hours is sufficient. But ideally, I mean 6 hours, if you can.
Sir, how to do smart work or productive study?
As I said, note making is very important, especially for mains. Note making, if you're solving the PYQs well, look at the topper content, what extra they are adding, and then make it very simple. Like I feel, simplify it, try to innovate it a little, and then be very confident. Attitude is also important. Whatever you prepare, I think even 5-10% of my notes I wouldn't have used. So end of the day, but that is all that matters. So be very confident, whatever comes you will be able to do this thing. Meanwhile, prepare your notes well, prepare the PYQs well, and have an idea about what all you will be doing. If it is a 10 marker, you should be sure that you will be completing it at 7 minutes. Like things like that. Prepare everything beforehand and then innovate constantly, innovate a little and be confident.
I use extra time to complete a single round.
That is okay. But in the first round, you should have some content for everything. And then you come back and do a little more in that way.
How would you suggest if somebody is doing a job?
Job also, I think nowadays I think having a job is very important because you never know whether you will clear it or not. Having a job is okay, just 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day you can easily cover, and like depending on the amount of time you have, just ensure that you prioritize it accordingly. Like if you have a lot of time, you can do answer writing every day or once a week and all. If you don't have, just do the PYQs, just brainstorm, like divide your time accordingly. And revision also, just do one round first and then prioritize which is giving more marks, which one you think you are weak at, and then give your time accordingly. And it is not entirely proportional to the effort. I mean, effort, everyone has to give effort. Unless there is effort, you're not clearing it. But so don't think that if you don't put in that extra 2 hours, you'll not clear. If you have a job, just put in 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever maximum you can put, and then strategize accordingly. I mean, it's very simple to say, but yes.
Can you share your last year experience on prelims?
Last year I didn't prepare separately. After result, I just gave the prelims. But some things, as I said, I was relatively strong, or I felt I was strong in current polity, economics, and little bit of history. And then I attempted 80-85. And CSAT, I was lucky in CSAT every time. I'm not very strong in maths. I generally attempt 27 English, some reasoning, and 5-10 maths. That's the maximum I do. Last time I did 37. 37 is what I attempted last time, and I got 80. 80 I think is good enough. But nowadays I think maths also you have to prepare. Don't take that risk. In some exam, if only 10 questions from English comes, then you can't take that chance. It's 1 year, 2 years of your 20s. So prepare for CSAT, prepare for maths. Prelims experience, it was fine. Like I didn't, as you were saying, so prelims I didn't prepare for last 2-3 years. So that is like a person who is having a job or having less time. So after your first serious attempt, that doesn't actually matter that much. It's more about your attitude, your mind, time, I mean how much you can do. And nowadays the questions are also framed in that way. Even if you have basic understanding of everything, it is about presence of mind. How much you can use the limited information and arrive at an answer. It is not like you study 100 questions and questions come from that directly. Okay.
How will you manage your peace of mind while studying and that level?
Like I used to play cricket often, not very often, but still like once a week or once 2 weeks. Like every day I used to go for a walk, and as I said, I had 4 notebooks and I had some pocket-sized books also. So I used to do some brainstorming or read some value addition, do a little walking or jogging. Like I mean, we had conference calls with friends. Like whenever you are exhausted, you can do something else. I used to go for movies. I used to watch a lot of movies. Even this time, in between like night and all, 11 o'clock, suddenly if I'm exhausted, I'll go for a movie, come back. So I was not like very structured, but whatever I did mostly was for the exam only. So motivation is like find a little free time for yourselves, little, and then try to connect that also with your exam. Like movies also, if you're watching good movies, you can connect it. You can take something for motivating yourself, songs, poetry, anything. Like stay motivated and like remember why you started. And at some point you have to give up. I mean not give up, like be a little detached also. Because like there's a quote by Mike Hussey. Recently I was just seeing, so he was saying like life you should see it like a butterfly, like expectations. Like sometimes if you try to catch the butterfly, it is very difficult. It will always not be in your reach. but sometimes you have to just leave it, enjoy the moment. Sometimes it will come and sit on your shoulders. So just at some point give your best and like, see what happens. Okay, thank you.